Well, where do I begin? You're listening to Who the Chel Cares, and I'm your host, Chelsea. Thank you so much for your patience and understanding in me getting this episode out a couple weeks and a few days late. It was a really hard one for me to go in and edit because I had to listen to it front and back myself, my own stories, a close friend of mine's stories, and I had a lot going on in my personal life the last few weeks as well, really heavily towards the mental health side and someone I care about deeply. And so I really just decided it would be best to take a couple weeks off and make this the best episode it can be. And then I'm going to move on from this. And I'll know for sure just how taxing emotionally and mentally it can be from my side as the editor and producer and everything. So you guys are on this journey with me. I'm learning as I go. And I just really can't wait for you to hear it because there's a lot of good stuff to take away. And Sarah is just the best. She's so knowledgeable, so empathetic, so kind and understanding. And she's lived it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sarah Thompson-Boyson. She was born and raised in Utah. She's 26 years old and owns a real estate company with her husband, Braden. I approve of Braden. Sarah loves dogs, thanks to Louise. We were roommates years ago. Emotional boundaries and traveling as much as she possibly can. When she was 16 years old, Sarah was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, and Tourette's syndrome, which we will cover in part 2. Sarah has spent the last 10 years trying to figure out how to navigate treatment centers, family therapy sessions, countless medication changes, all while still attempting to be a functioning and decent human. Sarah continues to teach me, as you will see in this episode, just how much I didn't know as someone who's already living it. So there's so much to learn for all of us, and I hope you enjoy. I do want to give a trigger warning for this episode. We do talk about our history with mental health, suicide, eating disorders, and self-harm. Please listen and watch at your own discretion. And if you or someone you know is in crisis, there is now a crisis hotline for the United States. It is 988. I'm very excited to have you.
No, anything for you, honestly.
You are someone in my life who really made an impact. And I want to be able to talk about how you made an impact because they were really simple things that you did for me because we hardly knew each other in like one of my darkest moments.
Yeah, same.
I met you through Facebook Marketplace.
So random.
I just felt like this is gonna be good. I just got a gut feeling. And then we moved in on your birthday.
We did.
And I don't know if that was any indication to how wild I was gonna be for a roommate, but we were trying to get a bed through your balcony.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I will never, because I had to take that bed back. At least the box spring. So we got the mattress in, but
and we had like your parents, we had everyone trying to get that to happen.
Yes. And then at the end of moving in, something like happened with our landlord.
Yes.
He was upset about something or whatever, and I was clearly at my breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a meltdown. I hit rock bottom, and my mom came over and we checked me into uni the next day, which is a mental hospital. And I was just like, I'm going to have to tell this girl I'm going camping or something. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to tell people I'm going into a mental hospital. New territory for me. And then
the funny thing about this, and I don't know if I've told you this before, is we moved in and we had met a few times, right? Like when we initially met each other to walk through the apartment, and then the day we moved in, and then, basically the next day, like, you were gone. And so first day you were gone, I was just kind of like, okay, like, Chelsea's not around. Then, like, I think it was like 2 more days. I was like, this is kind of odd.
Chelsea and her dog are gone.
Yes,
yeah.
Chelsea and her dog are gone. And I don't know why, but I just had, like, a gut feeling. And I remember telling my sister, like, I think Chelsea's at uni. And she was like, what? And I was like, I don't know why. I just think so. And she was like, okay. And this actually popped up on my time hop, like, decently recently. And it was a picture of, like, a half drink Jamba Juice and, like, 3 apples in the fridge. And I said, you don't put a half drink Jamba Juice and apples in the fridge if you're planning on going camping. Because there was a note that your mom left on the counter that said, like, hi, Sarah, this is Chelsea's mom. Chelsea, has gone camping with her friends and she doesn't have cell phone service. She will be back in a few days. It was, like, so random.
Yeah. Also, talk about shame. Like, trying to hide.
I was just like, this is a cover-up. And the only reason I knew was because I had done this multiple times. Like, I was the queen of this. So that is the only reason I knew. But I knew, like...
It wasn't even until I got back. Like, I got back, and I think I left my water bottle that had my, like, label maker name on it.
The red cup.
Yep. They want you to stay hydrated in there, which is good.
And that's a good cup. I still have.
But that was when you were like, hey, I have one of those too.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit. I have someone to talk to about this.
Yes.
And I was completely fine after that. I was like, no, I don't even have to worry about this. I'm not embarrassed anymore.
Yeah. And that's really when it all started, that we were just like
BFFs.
Homies. Yeah. We knew that we could just kind of talk to each other about anything, because I was just like, hey, like, I know it's kind of embarrassing to go to a, like, psych ward.
Right.
But I've gone, like, 18 times, so...
And honestly, that did help me. Like, sharing your story helps other people. And I know it was it scary for you to tell me that? Or not necessarily, because you were so confident I went.
Yeah, I wasn't at that point scared to tell you, because there had been a lot of times. But the first couple times, I had gone in, I was so embarrassed. Did the cover-ups, did, whatever I could to kind of hide it. Tried to tell people it was, something medical, like something, different medical.
Because for some reason that's okay.
Yeah, for some reason it is okay. Like if I, had my appendix burst or had a kidney infection, but it's not okay if, I'm considering, suicide, or if I'm, struggling with X, Y, or Z. So, I'd gotten to a point where I really don't have any problem telling people about it, talking about it now, but I used to.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a while to get to that point, and some people don't ever.
Yeah. I think practicing telling your story and, like, getting to know the people who deserve to hear it versus the people who are just bystanders, you know what I mean? Like, even something like this, because the internet hasn't, like, deserved the chance to, like, hear your story, or that's not your path to, like, go share your story professionally. It's really, those details are not important. You know what I mean? Like, it's the story of, like, I went, it's okay to go. And if you need someone to talk to, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, because most of the times the majority of my uni stays were in high school. That's, I say I've gone like 18 times. That sounds like a ton, and it kind of is, but really it just depends, for each person what they need. But yeah, I really struggled when I was in high school, and I had to go in a lot. But there were a few times after I graduated that I had to go in. And one of the times was when we lived together. And I remember I was so embarrassed because I went in and I went into one of the art therapy classes, or one of the group therapy classes, and I saw a mutual friend of ours, who was actually one of the therapists leading the groups. I have never been more embarrassed in my life, and I just pretended like I did not know her. And I still think about that sometimes. I'm like, I
ran into her as well while I was in there. And you want to know what I did? I booked it to the bathroom. And I locked my ass in there. And I was like, oh, shit. But you know what? Like, she's so used to it.
Yeah.
And she told me even before I went in there, I was like, do you ever, like, see your patients? And she's like, yeah. It's up to them to acknowledge me.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. Oh, and she was so nice about it and just kept going on with the group like she didn't know me. And that was really cool of her. But I was like, I should have just, like, at least smiled at her, or, like, given her some, like,
when you're in that state of mind, fuck off.
I was like, oh, I just, like, was, like, drawing or doing whatever, like, group activity they have us do in there. And I think about that all the time. I was like, that was pretty embarrassing. That was awkward. But I always tell myself, like, when I check out, like, this is going to be the last time. But you never know when you're going to need a situation like that. And I think I'm happy that they're there, but
I'm really happy that they're there.
Yeah.
There was not a moment too long ago that I made the call to see if they had a bed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's kind of triggering to put yourself back in that spot and be like, okay, like, we're here again.
Mm-hmm.
And are we going to make it out?
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
But I think even scarier than going multiple times is not being here anymore.
Yeah.
And I know it's not really scary in the moment.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that people who have been suicidal don't talk about very much.
Yeah.
It's almost comforting.
Yeah.
But I think that's what people around them need to realize, is that you could be like, well, don't do this for me and this person and that person. But it's like, you got to help the person who's in crisis find purpose for themselves.
Yeah.
Not to stick around for other people.
Yeah. And it's hard when you have somebody that you love that is suicidal. It's hard not to almost, like, beg them to stick around for you, because sometimes it feels like maybe that is the only reason that they would. Sometimes it's hard to give a person, when someone's in that dark place, to help them find a reason. But you know that they love you, and you know that they love their family, and so it's almost like you're just begging them to at least stick around for that. But yeah, when it comes down to it, that will actually never be enough, and that's a really sad thought. And yeah, it's not something.
I became a lot more compassionate for the people I've lost to suicide.
Yeah.
After I became suicidal.
Yeah.
Because you're not thinking about other people. They're not doing it to spite anyone. Mm-hmm. They're not. It's just them in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really dark place, and I think a lot of people will never get it, and I don't even know, honestly, if I truly get it, even though, I mean, I have attempted suicide, and I have, I think I can understand a lot more. But you still don't always, I still don't know quite what maybe was going through certain people that I've lost, what was going through their mind. I can't say that. It's not always equal, right? Like what I was dealing with and when I maybe attempted, it's not equal to what somebody else I lost was feeling in that moment. So you kind of, will never know. And that's a kind of a sad thought.
Totally.
Yeah.
I guess we have like Reikis and praying and whatever spiritual thing people believe in to like help find those answers for sure.
Yeah. Do you believe in that? Like, do you believe that you could find those answers through any of that?
I do. And I ebb and flow with like my beliefs and spirituality and that. And sometimes I'm like really into it and it brings me a lot of comfort. But other times I'm like, how much of this? Because I am mentally ill. I like gaslight myself a lot, right?
Like, am I making any of this up?
Yeah.
Is this fake?
Yeah. Am I just believing this because that's an easy way out? Or what? I think it's really hard for me to see what I view as like powers of other people.
Okay.
And like their validity.
Okay.
I've been messed up twice by this lady who read me like a book without knowing me and in front of a group of people. Okay? She rocked my world. I'm not going to look at her as a god, though. Do you know what I mean? Or think that she has like all these extra things that I could never have. I like to look at it as we all have it within us. And I'm trying to be a better, healthier version of myself so that I can be my own compass more easily. Okay. And so I don't need to go to other people to find those comforts like I have in the past. And I think everyone to each their own. For me, I've been a codependent kind of person all my life. And I'm trying to be less of that. And so this journey of my life is like really trying to figure out what I believe in, what helps bring me comfort through my past traumas, which do include losing a lot of people, whether that be to suicide or other things. It's making sense of death, making sense of trauma. I have no idea. I have no clue. Yeah. That's why I go to therapy. I don't know. Everyone has their resources, and that's what's important, is finding your resources that work for you.
That's why I think therapy is just the best thing, because it is essentially, at least for therapy for me is, it's just me working through it. Like my therapist,
with prompts from someone else.
Yeah, like my therapist, I think in like shows and movies and stuff, and maybe some therapists really are like this, but my therapist isn't like preaching to me or really ever like telling me how I should feel or like giving me a whole lot of like,
advice,
feedback or advice. Like if I ask for it, she will, but it's kind of rare. Like most of the time it's just an hour of me word vomiting and then 5 minutes of her like saying a few things and then me taking that in and then saying a bunch of stuff. And then I have, a week to sit on that and then it's that again. And it's crazy how like healing that is. And like honestly, I will not miss therapy for anything. Like I will not reschedule my appointment. Like I will be to therapy. Like we could have a trip planned. I'm like, no, like I will be to therapy. Like it is that important to me because I go crazy without it. It is such a good thing. And I
And
think
it sounds like you found a good therapist that mixes well with you.
my therapist is actually the same therapist that I had when I went into a treatment center when I was 16. So I went into a treatment center. It's called Youth Care. Shout out to Youth Care. When I was like 17. And I had this great therapist. And we just meshed so well. And she really helped me. And I worked with her. You know, I was in treatment for almost like from 17 to 18, basically. And we just like meshed so well. She really helped me. And I was able to like graduate high school and kind of like move on. And then I found out she was like in private practice. And we've been working together for like 4 years, almost 5, since, you know, so altogether we've really been working together like 8 years. And
That's awesome.
I love it. I love her. And I think therapy is awesome. Sometimes people tell me like they're scared to try it. They don't want to try it. And I think people just need to like dip their toe in.
Yeah.
And
I got a new therapist recently.
how's that going?
I was really nervous. It took me a year and a half
Mm-hmm.
to finally call one up and be like,
Really?
help, because I had a therapist from like 14 to 21.
Yeah.
And she was great. She really helped me, and she knew me really well. She knew my family. Like, it just, I could talk to her about things, and I feel like I got really good help and
Okay.
like ways to manage that. And then I got a new therapist right before I went into uni after trauma,
Mm-hmm.
trying to fix it myself. And then we worked together a little bit after I got out of uni, but she was Mormon and I was leaving the church or had just left years before. And it just wasn't,
Fit.
yeah, she kept talking about herself a lot. And I was like, yeah. And so I just kind of ghosted
Yeah.
and never
You
went
have to find
back
a good
until now.
therapist.
What's that?
You have to find a good therapist.
Yeah.
It's
And
a
like, I don't
match.
think she's a bad therapist. Like, it just didn't work for me.
Not a good match.
Mm-hmm. And so now I've found one that's a lot
Yeah.
more holistic and really just looks at me
Yeah.
talk. She just, like, same with you. She just watches me kind of like
Yeah.
word vomit and figure shit out
Yeah.
on my
That's
own.
Honestly, what you need. I had such a strange experience with therapy my first time. Like, right after my brother died, I was like 13. My mom was like, you need to go to therapy because, you know,
Yeah.
would be a normal thing.
And he died by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And she would like have me lay down on the couch and have me like imagine, because I wasn't sleeping. Like, I would just go days, you know, without sleeping. And she would have me imagine that an elephant was the alarm clock inside my head. And that, like, for me to fall asleep, that an elephant would, like, she wanted me to imagine that the elephant would, like, reach his trunk and turn off my brain for me to go to sleep. And I think she was trying to, like, somehow, like, bring out the childlike wonder and, like, because at that point I was just, like, I don't know if the child in me was dead. I don't know what she was
Child's
doing.
gone. We're growing up
Child's
fast
gone.
now.
Like, there is no child in me anymore, but I think that's what she was doing, but it was so weird.
Maybe like baby steps would have helped before just putting a elephant in your head.
Mm-hmm. And then she would just like do intercessions, and I just remember being so weirded out, thinking like, okay, that's what therapy is. Like, a woman like puts animals inside your brain. And so I did not want to go back.
I don't blame you.
And then my next experience with therapy was my parents picking me up from school one day saying, hey, Sarah, you're going to the doctor. And being like, okay, like, we have a doctor's appointment. And then admitting me to uni.
Mom and Dad.
Yeah. And so that was, and then it was like.
In hindsight, are you grateful for that experience, or are you still kind of like,
I'm grateful because I mean, I was like dying. So
Explain that if you don't mind.
I mean, I think I was like a junior in high school, and
So from 13 to junior year, which is 17.
Yeah. Yeah, so my brother, David died, and it was obviously really traumatic. Like my mom, my dad, and my sister all saw, his death, and like he hung himself, and so we found him. And so I think that was just like a lot for anyone to see, a lot for like a kid to see. And but I was, very much a perfectionist and just kind of went right back to school. I mean, I went back to school like 2 days later.
Suppress.
Joined, like tried out for all the plays, all the student council things. Like I was just like
you
doing
cheered
all the things.
Too, yeah?
Yeah. And so I just was doing all the things, cross country, all the things. And
stay busy. I can't think about it if I'm not idle.
Yeah. And at the same time, I think my parents were going through a lot. And at that point, it was just me, my mom, and my dad living at home. And it was a sad place to be. And I started really struggling with anorexia and bulimia. And for me, it was just whichever one served me best at the moment, basically, because my parents did start to notice, like, hey, you're not eating, we're kind of worried about you. Boom, like I could kind of switch it, like, to whatever one served me best. And I was doing that, really consistently for like 3 years.
Sorry to cut you off. Yeah. I just read something that eating disorders are very similar to having an alcohol, like being an addict and drinking excessively, right? You're an alcoholic, and then having like a substance abuse issue. I've read that they're very similar in the brain. So I can see where like the manipulation comes in. I've done it myself with mine, where it's like, okay, they're noticing I'm not eating, so I have to eat now, and then I'll just throw it up later.
Yeah. Well, I've also...
Because that's survival. You have the eating disorder to survive in your brain.
Yeah.
And so when that starts to get looked at or other people are noticing it and wanting to stop it, you're like, no, we got to keep this guy around.
Yeah.
It's helping me.
And the other thing about eating disorders that I've heard, and maybe this isn't the same for everyone, but eating disorders are often not about food.
Control.
It's control. And for me, like, I know some people really struggle, like, with eating. For me, like, I didn't necessarily struggle at that time with eating.
Like, you liked food. You enjoyed food.
I enjoyed food. But I also could not eat very easily, as long as I had some sort of control. So if I was eating, I definitely was purging. But if I, wasn't purging, I was restricting. I was also, running cross country, and I was loving it. I mean, I felt like that was something I was consistently rewarded for from my peers. And
that is like throwing a match on the fire, isn't it? Or whatever the phrase is. It's like,
on the flame.
I'm doing really terrible things to myself, and I'm getting praised for it.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Because society wants you to be thin. And so it's other people projecting themselves on you, right? Like maybe they wish they were thinner. I started to just tell people, They're like, Chelsea, you're so thin, or Chelsea, you look great. I'm like, yeah. Just crippling anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
Great diet.
Yeah.
Like, what are you supposed to say when people are doing that and that's helping you be bad to yourself?
Yeah. And I think at like that age, and like to their credit, I think girls in high school don't know any better. I think like women our age should know better than to be complimenting girls or women, girls, whatever, on their bodies.
Anyone. Like,
Yeah.
if you can't fix it in 5 seconds, don't talk
Yeah.
to me about it.
But I think the girls who were, saying things to me and all of that, I think they had the best intentions, and most of it was they were saying it out of their own insecurities. And then on top of that, I was also cutting. I started cutting. And that became a whole, other thing, which is strange. Cutting is a very, self-harm is such a strange, like, addiction. And it's like,
coping mechanism. And
like I was cutting, burning myself, and then I was also struggling with hallucinations and
well, you're not eating.
And also having like some PTSD like responses during that time.
They always come back. They, like, swear to God.
Yeah.
PTSD you'll think is like, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Surprise.
I know. Yeah, so my parents picked me up from school one day, told me they were taking me to the doctors, dropped me off, at the psych ward. I say it like, they were, it's really what needed to happen. And then I wasn't really in school, like in a traditional school, for basically a year. And then I did, uni, and then I did this program called Teen Scope at the U. And then I did youth care. And then
We liked youth care, you said.
I liked youth care.
Good experience.
Because it was more, uni and Teen Scope were very like clinical. It felt like you were in a hospital.
Yeah. A prison.
Yeah. And youth care felt more like you were kind of living in like it was more like a boarding school type thing. You were in a home type thing.
Like, had your own room.
Shared a room with 4 girls. It felt more like a home, but you still had like a lot of staff and
well, you're on suicide watch still.
Yes. But it definitely felt more manageable. You got to go to school while you were there, and
wear regular clothes.
The school was in the home. Yes, you wore regular clothes, not scrubs. I mean, you couldn't wear like shoes unless you're outside, but people were there longer, so you made more connections because in, like uni, people are usually there for like a week and a half. Yeah,
as soon as you make that connection, either you're leaving, they're leaving, and you might never see each other again. You're encouraged not to connect.
So it just was a better experience for me. I was there 2 different times, and I felt like that's where I made the most progress. Uni is definitely there to, when you are feeling really unsafe, it's there to get you stable and get you on to the next step. And then youth care, or like more of a residential treatment center, is there to kind of help you transition to like home life. And honestly, when I graduated from youth care in high school, I felt like pretty ready to take on the world. I was not.
Oh no.
I was definitely doing better. I just think I felt like I was like so smart and so ready and like...
Well, to your defense, I kind of felt like that at the end of my stay at uni because they build you up so much, right? It's just like inflate their heads. These people are like really
Yeah.
talking down to themselves, so we have to talk up to them.
Oh, yeah.
I can see how that.
And I almost thought I knew more than like any of, like, this sounds so bad. I almost thought I knew more than any of my friends. Like, I felt like I had so much life experience, which in some ways I did.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
some kids never
my
know.
friends had been in like high school. I had been in psych wards. So I felt like I knew.
Listen, you'd seen some shit.
I had seen some shit. I had seen kids talking to walls. I had seen what is the room where you're in and you're in a straitjacket?
Mm-hmm.
I had been in that room.
Like solitary confinement type stuff.
Yeah. And so
it's stuff out of the movies. The movies don't make things up.
Yeah. They dramatize it a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's all there.
I felt like I was in Girl Interrupted.
Yeah.
The second I walked in there.
Yep. And then they make you take off all your clothes.
Mm-hmm. And there's like 3 women in there, and they're like, hey.
They're like, there's a scar there. There's this there. They're like, yep. I've done this plenty of times before.
I'm like, I already don't want to be here. Could we make this worse?
The worst is like when you are a regular. Like for a while there, we joked that our family like should have like a frequent like flyer pass.
Dude.
Because I had gone so many times in like a short amount of time.
You're like, where's my suite?
Yeah. Because by the time I graduated high school, I think I had gone 17 times.
Holy shit.
And
to give people some perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I was doing really bad.
But I think the continuous effort to try speaks volumes to your life. Yes.
And I have done really great since then. I had, a couple rough patches since then, but, I haven't. It's been like 4 years.
Well, and that's saying a lot that, like, when you go through treatment, like, you can go through really hard things in your life again. And now you have all these skills and resources and tools in your backpack that you can, like, use to help you get through it. And one of those tools is going back to the place.
Yes. And it doesn't mean, here's the thing, is sometimes when you feel like you have to go back, and this happens with going back to treatment, it kind of happens with, like, relapse. It doesn't mean you're back at ground zero. And I hate when sometimes it really feels that way. Like you're starting back at the beginning or back at zero. You're not, because you've still come all the way that you did before. You're just resetting, to a certain point. You're not back at the beginning.
That's important to note for sure.
But yeah, it's been, I think over 4 years, over 5 years since, I've even considered going back. And that doesn't mean like that I'm better or worse. It just means like, hey, it works. It's good to do and it's okay to go in and get help. But I really have like no shame around it.
Good.
Anymore.
I don't either much.
Yeah.
I think the more I talk about it, the more comfortable I get.
Yeah. I think that's really good.
Obviously, I'm not trying to go just yell it everywhere
Put on your
I'm
job
at.
resume.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it would be nice to get to a point where it can be more casually talked about in an uplifting sort of way.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, they're talking about suicide. What a drag.
Seriously.
It's like, no, this is something that impacts a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot. And it's just growing.
Yeah.
So ignoring it's not going to do anyone any good.
No. Well, and the way, like, suicide is talked about, it's so interesting because, first of all, suicide is talked about very negatively. It's very much avoided. It's quite frankly talked about as a crime. Like, I saw this video, and this was like recently, and there was a man in a mall who attempted suicide, and the firefighters came, and after the firefighters, EMTs came and helped him, they turned him in to the police
For?
As a crime. Like, he was
Like, disrupting the peace, or
like in some areas, like, suicide is still considered a crime.
Like, you murdered yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why, like, the term committing suicide,
You're committing.
yeah, it's been considered, like, for so many years as a crime, because it actually was considered a crime.
Is that why the language is changing to died by suicide then?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason that it's important, and why sometimes I correct people, and it's not because I'm trying to be like,
No.
oh no, don't say that. It's important because criminalizing suicide actually doesn't only discourage people from attempting. Like, it's not like people hear, oh, this is a crime, I'm not going to do it. It actually makes it so that people who are struggling and who are considering suicide, who are suicidal, it makes it so that they are scared to reach out for help. It makes it so that they feel ashamed, because it is such a, like, shameful topic, because
How dare you?
yeah, and because of how we talk about it. So it's more than just like, oh, don't say committed suicide, say died by suicide, because there's so many things, like, in our culture, so many, say,
Just phrases.
yeah, say different phrases. There's so many
Sayings.
things that we are, like, adjusting, but a lot of these things that we have to adjust really are important if you look at the root. And it's not just, this generation being, like, so picky or so, like, I don't know,
I look at it a lot.
sensitive.
Yeah, I look at it a lot like kind of in parallel to the disability community, right? Where there were always just people without disabilities making the rules, making the verbiage, like the phrases, like handicapped did not come from someone with a disability.
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't. It came from people who don't live it every day,
Yeah.
don't understand it, and then that puts a stigma on it, because
Yeah.
how could they? This is something unknown, and so it's a little nerve-wracking or scary, right?
Yeah.
But if it were to be explained and educated by people like us who've actually gone through it, we use the right terms. We can actually help communicate what that looks like, because those people didn't commit suicide. That's how they died.
Yeah.
That's how their life ended. They didn't commit anything.
Yeah. Somebody died of cancer.
They didn't
They
commit
died
cancer.
of an illness. Yeah. Somebody died of suicide. They died by an illness. And people who are struggling with thoughts of
Ideation.
yeah, they are now so scared to reach out, because there is so much stigma around it. And
Could you imagine being like, hey, I have cancer. I'm really sorry to bother you with that.
No. And I remember one of the things, like, I remember the most when David died was I was so scared, not because I believed this, because I didn't. I never believed this. I was so scared that my friends, my neighbors, my extended family, people in my church were going to think David was going to hell.
Oh, yeah, because that's a thing in religion.
Yeah, and just, like, I think our, like, kind of society a little bit. But yeah, I was 13 years old, and I just remember being, like, trying to, like, really explain to people, like, like, he's not going to hell, right? Like, really nervous that, like, his friends, people he loved, like, I really wanted people to know, like, that's not going to happen. You know that, right? And I think I don't really think there were that many people who believed that, but I just remember being so scared. Like, I didn't want anyone to think that would be the worst thing I can imagine.
Because he was amazing.
He was amazing. He was the best kid. He was, the smartest person I knew, a great student. He, played sports. He wrestled, played football. He ran track. He was like an honor student. He was a great brother. And, there was nothing about him that would put him in this category that sometimes these terms or these labels would make it seem like he was, not this great kid.
Well, and especially in the Mormon religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we all want to go to the same tier of heaven.
Yeah.
So it gets a little more complicated when your whole community believes that whole.
Yeah.
Because even if, like me, I'm not going to go to the same tier as my parents.
Yeah.
In their minds, So like with me, I'm just going into the ground after this. But for other people who believe that and then they're projecting that onto other people who are grieving, that's got to be so much harder. Because then, like you're saying, you're advocating for this person who's not even here anymore and you're a child.
Yeah.
What?
I think especially when it comes to grief, people need to... I think always people need to leave their beliefs about death and the afterlife out of what
just say I'm
your
sorry
choices and beliefs have to do with it, but especially with death, like really that should have nothing to do with your beliefs.
You'll see him again. It's all these things that other people believe themselves that they're putting on those grieving.
Yeah.
Which I believe the intention is nothing but pure. I get that. I struggle when people are less aware at what their words are doing to people.
Yeah.
You can be as religious as you want. If you're not very aware, you're going to be implicating those beliefs on other people. Implicating is not the right word I'm looking for, I don't think. Projecting those beliefs onto other people. And so it's really hard because then you're getting to a community side. You're getting to all of that. Whereas, like, they should be coming up to you and being like, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do? He was great.
Totally.
And nothing can change that.
Yeah. And we had, like, so many great people. I mean, we had, like, a family. I don't even know who it was, but, like, my dad, like, loves chocolate milk. That's, like, his thing. And we had a family who, like, every week would put a gallon of chocolate milk on our porch at night. And I don't know, like, who it was, but, like, I just remember, like, that was, like, such a special thing. And it just, like, was really cool. Like, we had really great people surround us.
Good.
But the thing about grieving is eventually, like, the things stop, but your grieving really never does. And that's, like,
yeah, like, how long do they put the milk out on the
like,
porch?
it was a long, like, I remember, like, it was, like, a couple months, right?
But as that other person, you're wondering, like, when do I stop? When do I keep going? Like, do they even like this?
Yeah. And it's hard because, grieving, like, never stops. You never stop hurting. But it's hard because the things stop coming, the flowers, the meals, the notes, but you're always going to just be grieving for that person. And it's hard because you don't, like, obviously you don't expect, the things to keep coming, but it is hard when it's like, oh, everyone else, like, stopped caring.
Is moving on.
Even, like, little things, like, there was a Facebook page and it, would get filled with, like, notes and comments and pictures for so long, and then people stopped posting.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would be, like, just on the year of his death, people would post. And now it's like, okay, maybe a couple people still post. And it's like, I don't hold any accountability on people to do that. But it does, like, just remind you that, like, grieving is, like, a really lonely place to be. It's lonely. The only people that, we have are really like our family, and I guess at least we have, them. So.
And everyone does it so differently.
Yeah.
Like you went and put yourself in a bunch of sports and
Yeah.
stayed busy. Other people could just completely shut down and be like, I'm not leaving the house.
Yeah.
And both of those are okay.
Totally.
As long as you like take care of yourself, when you finally did. And
yeah. One of the hardest things is helping somebody if, they are suicidal, and the best thing you can do is just, let them know that you're there. And I think, stick with them, offer them resources.
And help them get to those resources, because honestly, if I didn't have someone in my life helping me get things done and like calling therapists, because no one has any room right now. Like you have to get yourself on a waiting list mostly. Like, and it's when you're already not like showering, brushing your teeth, eating, whatever, you're not going to be able to get to those resources like someone who's well would be able to. And they're made for people who are well, like the navigating of them. And so if you're able to offer some time to help them like fill out the form, go to the doctor, drive them here or there, like do those things, I think that's pretty impactful as well, because they're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
They've given up, and so doing those chores, that's not going to be helpful. It's going to be more detrimental.
Yeah. The other most important thing is if you are helping somebody who is struggling, to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Because it is very draining, emotionally, physically, all the things, to love someone, to take care of someone, to be a support system for somebody who is not only like suicidal, but who is mentally ill. And especially if they are like to the point where they like are unable to take care of themselves. That's basically, it's a very difficult place to be in. So like taking care of yourself, and that is the most important thing.
It's all in here. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you I'm in the same boat. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm still trying to figure out my mental health, and I'm not a psychologist here. We're just here talking about our own experiences. But I think sharing our story, even if it helps one person, I've noticed that that's all I need.
Yeah.
And that fills my cup more than I could ever ask for. And that's honestly why I started this podcast. But I think we've come to some good like resources. Be honest and open, and be a safe place for people.
Yeah.
If you're wondering why none of your friends have ever come to you and they've been like opening up about being in a bad spot, it's because you haven't let them know that you would be a safe place.
Yeah. And also like a lot of times like your friends don't expect you to fix their problems. Like maybe a few, like, I don't know,
there's some people,
a couple like who are that kind of person. But most of the time, if a friend is coming to you, they just need somebody to like kind of unload on for a second, or just to like have that person that they could kind of trust. That's all. I mean,
I had a friend who I learned this from, and I love it. I should do it more. I don't remember it always, but asking people, hey, do you have the emotional and mental capacity for me to vent for a minute?
Yeah.
Are you in a spot where that'd be okay?
That's really great.
And that's why you have like a network of people, right? You have your support network. I've got my mom, my dad, siblings. Like, you have people and different friends for different moments and different things.
Yeah, that's really smart.
To think that like you only need one person, that poor person, you're going to drown them too.
Yeah, and also poor you, because to think that that one person is going to be able to give you everything that you need and to be able to be everything for you, like,
you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah, you are, because we need like people in our lives. And I don't have like a ton of people, and you don't need millions of friends to be happy, but
Dude, quality over quantity.
Yeah, quality over quantity. I do not have a lot of quantity, but
Me either. I'm unfriending left and right, so sorry.
I am good for the quality, so that's what I'm all about.
Yeah. I'm so freaking glad to have you.
Same. I feel like we met each other at the perfect time. We were both just struggling.
It was struggle bus at that townhome.
It was struggle bus. We would just check in.
I would like to say one thing. One thing that you can do for your friends, especially if they're your roommates, we got down to a good system where I was like, okay, if your door is closed for like a whole day ever, we got to the point where we'd let each other like knock, hey, how you doing? Hey, do you need lunch? Hey, do you need anything? Like, you were working retail, so you had like full days off in the middle of the week and it'd be kind of random. I was working at a tech company, so I had all weekend to just die in my room, whatever that looked like. And we looked out for each other without any sort of like shame. Like, I could be like, oh, Sarah knocked on my door twice today and I still haven't come out. But like, she doesn't care. She's not looking at me.
Okay in there?
Yeah.
Does Louise need a walk?
There were some times because that was when I first started like using cannabis for my PTSD. Thank you for carrying me up to my room from the living room so many times. My dog would ditch me. She'd be like, I'm going to bed.
Would be like, bye, Mom. I'm going upstairs.
Sarah will bring you up later. It's so bad. But it really is little things like that. It's like, no judgment, dude.
Yeah.
I'm just here and I'm glad you're not alone.
We had such a very safe relationship. Best, honestly, such a good roommate relationship.
I wish I could go back. I know you're married.
I know.
Can I move in?
Come on in.
Brayden?
Bring Louise.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to Who the Chel Cares. I'm your host, Chelsea, and I hope you give a fuck too. If you would like, rate, subscribe, share, comment, DM me. I want to know your guys' feedback on these episodes. It helps me learn and grow and give you guys what you want to listen to. So I'm really excited about the upcoming episodes, and I hope you are too. Help. Ma'am? Louise? Leave it. Leave it. Leave it.